I featured this before. It's a JVC Super VHS machine with a built-in digital time-based corrector. So these are really very useful machines and highly sought after. But unfortunately, some of these models include a feature called the dynamic drum assembly, which allows it to move the video head position, the drum position, during picture search and freeze frame to give you better performance in those modes. But really, that's not that important. And the trouble is that the gears in that dynamic drum system keep failing. It's not like you can just disconnect it, because it's looking for signals back from the head position sensor. I mean, I suppose you could come up with some sort of really complicated system that bypassed it, but I really couldn't figure.
Priority post.
Oh, okay. We'll look at this later. Hello. Well, today is the day to find out what the solution is to these JVC Super VHS machines, which have a dynamic drum system, which sounds like a good idea because it allows better picture search and freeze frame functions, but isn't a good idea because the gears break in it, and when the gears break, it can't move to where it needs to get to, and the machine will just shut down. So this particular machine is working at the moment, but now is the time to install this before it breaks, because if it jams up and breaks completely, it gets a lot harder to solve, though not impossible. Right, so let's investigate what we have in here, and we'll also demonstrate what the machine presently does. So these have been sent to me by HiKey, and I will provide contact details in the description below. So what we have are not one but two, well, circuit boards. Each circuit board contains a Raspberry Pi and some other electronics, and it's called DD Emulator. What does this mean? Let me give you a little bit of background. This is a JVC HRS 8600. It's a highly useful machine because, as well as being VHS and Super VHS, it also includes a digital time-based corrector. Very useful for recovering recordings and digitizing them in high quality. But it includes this dynamic drum system. Now, there was another model which is almost identical, the HRS 7600, doesn't include that feature, which is a good thing because that one won't break down with these faults. This is not the only model. There were other machines that also included that dynamic drum system with the gears that break up. So we don't care really about that feature. What we care about is keeping the machine working. But it actuates those gears and expects to move the head in a certain position, and if it can't do so, it will simply shut down. If it doesn't get a reading back from the opto sensors within 3 seconds, it will switch the machine off. And I had that problem with this machine, that sometimes I'd switch it on and it switches itself off again, and then after a while it would just fix itself. Well, what was happening was the gears were jamming, and after some being jostled around and what have you, they would unjam for just long enough that it would work. So the problem comes about in picture search and freeze frame, where it adjusts the head angle to try to give you perfect results during those trick functions. This is nothing to do with dynamic track following, such as installed on V2000 video recorders, where the head tips themselves have their angles altered by a piezoelectric block that the head tips sit on. In this case, you move the entire head drum, the lower drum and upper drum as a whole assembly. Now, because you can't just disable the feature, we need a way of tricking the machine into thinking that it's working when it's not, and then we can carry on using the machine. There was one possible workaround which hasn't been completely ruled out at the moment, but is not looking very likely, is whether there's a way of disabling the feature using its internal factory mode settings. I have a special remote control which I featured before, which is used for accessing the not consumer level but the repair and factory level settings inside these machines. They're not normally obtainable. They're very special remote controls with special codes in them. but there's no mention in the service manual of any settings in there that would allow us to switch off the dynamic drum system. Doesn't mean it's impossible, just that the information on how to do so is not public, if it's possible at all. And one thing we did check is that the Syscon chip in the 7600 model, which is the one that looks just like this but doesn't have dynamic drum, it doesn't have the same Syscon chip. So that kind of points towards the possibility that it's not going to be something that can be disabled just in a menu. Anyway, back to this machine. This one works fine at the moment, and I can use picture search, and you can see, well, we are getting mistracking lines during picture search. Whether that's intended or not, I'm not sure, because I don't know if I've seen this machine in full working order. Let's try freeze frame. The freeze frame is perfect, but then it could cheat there because it has access to a digital time store in there for part of the digital time base corrector. So we don't know if this is actually working at all. It's making some nasty noises, but it is at least satisfying the opto sensors that the machine is running at the moment. I'll take a look in a moment. We'll get the camera set up here so we can see if we can see the head adjusting during the picture search modes. But the intention at the end of all this is to install one of these. It's a DD emulator, which will emulate the pulses that the machine is expecting to see at the time it's expecting to see them, so that we can disable the dynamic drum assembly. Now, something I should say, we're lucky here this machine is basically running. If you've got to the state that your machine won't run at all, then the problem is the head will be at an angle, not in its neutral position, and there is more to do in that case, and I'll briefly talk about what that involves. But it's a bit non-trivial, and we're not going to go into all that detail here now. So you'll be a little bit on your own until maybe I can feature one of those machines where I have to strip out the entire dynamic drum system. Right, let's get the lid off and have a look at the dynamic drum system. Okay, let's select forward picture search and see if we can see the dynamic drum assembly in operation. Can you see? It's quite subtle, but the whole head drum tilts clockwise in forward picture search. Show you again. There it is. And then back to play. And we'll do reverse picture search. And it tilts anti-clockwise. And then back to fast forward picture search. So you can see the head drum tilting. Okay. That's how it's supposed to work, possibly without all that noise. Let's now show you what we're going to do about removing that system. The machine is now powered down, so I'm looking to remove the entire head drum assembly to gain access to the underside where the PCB is for the dynamic drum system. You could take the entire deck out, and I have taken the entire deck out of this machine before, but it's a bit of a carry-on, so we won't. We'll just take the head drum assembly off. To do that first, we need to remove some connectors. So there's this flexi cable at the top, that's an easy one, and then a little more fiddly, this one. Now Heike has sort of made a tool for this. He's modified a set of needle nose pliers, and that's probably a good idea, but I'm going to very, very gently get this ribbon cable out just with my fingers. Yeah, I quite like Heike's tool for that. No, I think I can use these pliers because they're quite soft, quite curved. They're not very sharp, so I think they'll be good to grab this cable gently. There we go. That did a nice job. So that cable is unplugged. Now we have 3 screws to remove. One at the front and these 2 at the back. So we'll take those screws out and then we can lift the whole head drum assembly off. Now of course, in all the work we're doing with this, we need to be super careful not to touch the head tips. Okay, so that's unplugged this connector here from the PCB. Let me show you that. This is the connector here that the dynamic drum assembly plugs into, and that's what we're going to bypass. Firstly, let's get you set up so you can look down on this in a little bit more detail. So this is as it came off the machine. This is towards the back. That's the connector I unplugged with the pliers. This is the connector to the dynamic drum motor assembly. So what we're going to have to do is remove this circuit board so that we can plug our emulator into that space. So this is going to fit in that location. But to remove that circuit board, we do have to disconnect the motor here, which is the one that's been driving these gears that have been making all those horrible noises. So quick soldering iron and desolder those. Now I should say nothing I'm going to do here will be destructive. If somebody comes up with a rebuilt assembly or new sets of gears for these that don't break up, it's not impossible that I will one day revert back to having the dynamic drum assembly operating. You may not want to do that, but I want to have that option. So I'm not going to break anything. I'll just desolder the motor and take this board off and keep it with the machine. Okay, with the motor now desoldered, I should be able to just remove this circuit board. I believe the idea is to push it that way a little bit. Okay, that's the board removed, but I'm not going to discard that. We'll keep it with the machine. If you look very closely, I think we can see at least one of the gears is cracked. I think we can see a small crack in the plastic there. And there will be other cracks in other gears throughout. So the knack now, oh yeah, I can see another one over here on this one. The knack now is to leave it alone. Don't start fiddling with any of this. It's set in the center position, which is where we need it to be in order to not have to do lots of realignment. If your machine is so snarled up that it doesn't boot up at all, then the next thing you're going to have to do is remove this entire assembly. If you're lucky, all you have to do then is slightly tighten up these 2 screws by 1/4 of a turn, that one and the one that's underneath this motor. They are spring loaded. Do those up by 1/4 of a turn. It helps remove slack. And then the gears left behind, when you've taken this assembly off at the top, you can just about access from the top, and you'll be able to set the alignment up when playing a tape, preferably a long play tape, which is more critical, and get this head back into its center position. But I'm not going to go through that procedure here because this machine doesn't need it. It is something potentially we could demonstrate at a future date if we have a scrap machine that I've got nothing to lose. But this one I have everything to lose. So I'm going to now install the DD eliminator. Okay, so we need to make sure that this is installed the right way round, so that that is the top, and it's the top at that end plugged into this. You could run the cable under here, but I think there's a little bit of a hazard that you could collide with the supply side mechanism here during its lace up. So I'm thinking it might be safer to run the cable in from behind. Now there's not really enough room unless you go here, and then the cable might be a horrible angle. Let's look at that. Okay, it's going to have to go in this side, so we're going to have to make sure we keep it well down on the PCB so that there's no risk of it hitting any of the mechanism. So let's now reinstall the head drum. Looking at the drum, you know, most video head drums have a ridge along the bottom here to set the position that the tape sits in. But in this case it doesn't, because of course it has to move so that the tape position is not fixed. Okay, let's do this flexi cable at the back. Okay, greatest of care with that one. And now the one for the top board. Okay, we're ready to test it, I think. At least in the first instance, let's see if the machine will switch on and not just switch itself off again in a paddy because it's not seeing signals. Hopefully we have everything configured correctly. So power it up. I've got quite a lot of light on this. Yes, I'm going to have to switch some of these lights off because VHS doesn't get on very well with lots and lots of light. Okay, I've tried to make it a little bit darker because VHS end sensor system is prone to getting confused under bright lights. So I switched it on. Well, it hasn't powered down, that's a good thing. And it's playing. Let's try picture search. And we can see LEDs there were telling us that it was active. Let's go reverse picture search. You know, I think I prefer it just because of the lack of noise. And I can tell you that we do have a good picture. In fact, the results are very similar. I guess there's more noise bars, but we'll see those later. Ah, it's just shut down. Ah, did it? Was it unhappy for a moment? So in picture search, it went from picture search to shut down. It wasn't getting a signal it was looking for. Let's do that again. Picture search forward. Yeah, there's about twice as many noise bars. I'll show you that later. Play. That's okay. Reverse picture search. And play. And freeze frame. Okay, that's all working. That one little glitch may have been something else, maybe a bad bit of tape or something. Okay, let's finish off assembling this a little better, and then I can demonstrate to you how well it works. Right, I've installed it here now. The circuit board is there on a sort of sticky pad thing, and I've been particularly careful to make sure that the flexi cable is pushed all the way back here, well away from the lacing mechanism, so it won't foul on this. Okay, that's all good. Let's just test it one more time. Oh yes, I also want to put this in here for safekeeping, and I'll reassemble it and we'll show you it working in a moment. Okay, I've cable tied the original DD board there so that it won't get lost. Do you see the light flashes when you power up? Because that's one of the things, is it needs to be able to see that that's in operation. Okay, let's put the machine through its paces. So switch it on. Normal play operation. Forward picture search. So there's more noise bars than there used to be, probably double. Reverse picture search. Again, a lot more noise bars. But you know, it's a small price to pay. And you don't have all that awful grinding noise going on. Hit play. Freeze frame I don't think will be affected. Correct, because it's done digitally. I go into normal fast forward mode. And play. What's that about? Picture search. Why is it? Okay, it had a little bit of a paddy from play. Do you know what? That might have been a tape slack issue. They have brakes on these that wear out, and when you go from fast forward to play, sometimes you can get a bit of a tape loop because you get a bit of excess tape caused by the brakes not working very effectively. So I don't think that's got anything to do with the modification. And reverse picture search again. Oh, we've got this jog and shuttle dial here as well, which I never really thought was very good, this one. Okay, so got different speeds. 1.5, 2, 3. Right, now we're getting noise bars. So these are the sort of functions that probably would have been better prior to the modification. Yes, it would have been those picture search features that would have been better, in terms visually better, prior to modification. If you don't mind all the horrible noise and unreliability. Great, that's worked a treat. I'll provide some information on where you can obtain one of these if you need one. I'll also provide more information as it becomes available in the description below, and also try to get a full list of the machines that this is suitable for. Right, I hope you've enjoyed what we've done here today. I'll do plenty more content on audio and video technology in the near future. Bye for now. It was actually a subscriber a little while ago who very kindly donated this iFixit toolkit to me, and I use it all the time. It's brilliant. But guess what Lidl are doing? Got to give this a whirl, haven't we? So I'll feature that shortly. Let's see how it compares to the real deal. It was quite cheap.